So, there's something that's been going on in the mostly comic book arena. So, not really covered by this channel, this store. I'm a comic book guy, but the store itself is not a comic book store. I have some graphic novels in the store. They've never moved. So, the comic book industry is doing pretty terrible. And, of course, that led to Diamond declaring bankruptcy, and this may not have been the first time they declared bankruptcy. I remember something happening in the early days of 2020 during the pandemic where Diamond shut down and wasn't shipping comics, and then DC moved its subscriptions over to a New York comic store. I can't remember now. They shipped to me. I did a bunch of subscriptions of Superman, Batman, that kind of stuff. But Marvel, I'm not sure how they dealt with that, but now they're definitely going to be struggling because, Diamond has been in bankruptcy court since about the beginning of the year, and there was some weirdness around Universal, the distributor, wanting to buy it, but then Alliance, which was a games distributor primarily in the United States, that was also partnered with Diamond, because basically if you signed up with Diamond, you would end up getting an Alliance account as well, and then Alliance stepped in to buy them and somehow had made a deal to pay possibly less than what Universal did, and then the two I guess Universal sued Diamond or Alliance because of the way this deal went down. I'm not really sure what the resolution on that was. But then also, in this bankruptcy court, the Universal has to make up, its debt and restructure the company and figure out a solution to its debt that a judge will accept and the other parties will accept. And there's a pecking order for debt, and I'm not an expert on this, but usually it's based on investors. I mean, people that directly invest in the company, like, I guess bridge financing, or, basically banks that get together a ton of money on behalf of a client from other clients and move their money into this business. That's more direct investment. And then bonds, so debt issue that they've done, and then a bunch of other things down from there, and shareholders, are probably somewhere near the bottom, right? So the debt restructuring, usually, like employees, like if someone's owed wages, they're not at the top of the list. They're somewhere also on the bottom of the list along with shareholders. So the debt restructuring has to service especially these two primary areas: the debt issuance of investment and bonds. So Diamond was going to liquidate a bunch of product to raise funds to pay off this debt, which is great if it was their product, but it wasn't their product. It's product on consignment, meaning it's in their warehouse, but they are not the owners of it because they haven't paid for it yet, right? They just took shipment of it, and then when it sold, they would make a percentage, and a small percentage. I don't know whether it's anywhere from 5 to 20% or so. I don't know exactly what it is, but they would take that percentage and return the remainder of the funds to the person who sent it to them, or whatever company sent it to them. So there's a lot of small games manufacturers who've done consignment stuff with Diamond, and I think Pathfinder or Paizo might be also have some consignment stuff with them. They're the largest one that's been mentioned, but I'm sure there's other larger ones, maybe even Wizards of the Coast, maybe other game manufacturers that are larger could have consignment stuff at Diamond, and Diamond is going to use this to pay off their debt, but they don't own the stuff, so therefore these other companies have decided to sue Diamond. There's this whole big drama thing going on. A lot of YouTubers have talked about it. A lot of YouTubers have given the details, but it's just interesting that this started happening this year during the exuberance of what's been going on with collectible card games, especially Pokemon and Magic. And Diamond is struggling, probably because they're primarily based on comics, which have done the opposite of what collectible card games have done. They haven't recovered since from the 2021 crash and the bubble that put them up to exorbitant heights. But a lot of new comics haven't been selling because of choices the comic book company's been making on the writers, artists they choose, the stories they choose, the stuff they choose to publish, and how it connects to the movies that they're making as well. And some of those movies not doing so well at the box office. So a lot of things are converging to make people less interested in comics in general and drive the prices of comics down and the sales of comics down. And therefore, Diamond, being the largest distributor of comics and therefore having a huge stake in this, I don't know whether it's a 90% stake, a 60% stake, or whatever, how much their revenue was defined by this, and not being able to maneuver and move into the things that are, much more lucrative at this point. And it's going to affect games going forward. It already is affecting games because these smaller game companies, they need the money from the stuff they ship to Diamond, and they're not going to get it potentially. And even if they are, they're going to have to pay lawyers, and it'll take forever to get the money for it if they get it. And also they'll have to pay lawyers, so that will cause the cost of video game of these games that they've sent to Diamond to go up, and their games in general to go up, which will affect the consumer. Or possibly these companies, because of this, they don't have a lot of spare cash sitting around that they can necessarily survive through this, so some of them might go belly up and themselves declare bankruptcy, and then we may lose some innovation and new ideas and great designers and that kind of stuff, and there'll just be a huge shakeup. And I thought it was important to talk about this, even if there are details, but the details are also sparse, and a lot of it is, either dry or confusing for people who don't understand bankruptcy stuff, and I don't particularly understand bankruptcy stuff, so I don't want to explain it without being fully cognizant of what goes on in bankruptcy court. I just want to give you a general overview of what's happening with Diamond, and if something in the future changes, I'll let you know, and this could affect why something in the future is the way that it is. So, just so you know, if these games disappear or the prices rise, that's one of the reasons. And that's all I wanted to talk about. So, let me know what you think about this Diamond stuff in the comments below. Have a good day.